and welcome on this glorious and amazing day. So you have two individuals that have deeply impacted the world, one extremely negative and painful that will never be forgotten, and one is being impacted right now by two powerful people, one in a very negative way powerful and one in a very positive way. Adolf Hitler, born in April 20th, 1889, and over 70 years later, another individual born on February 29, 1960, Tony Robbins. What a similar background. Hitler, as a child, is beaten, humiliated by his dad, and just crushed. As far as I understand and what I read, he was actually, as a child, before he was crushed, a very sensitive young man, which explains why he turned in so brutally cruel, because many times when sensitive people are rubbed the wrong way without choosing the right path, they end up that way. But that's a separate talk for itself. And then 70 years later, over 70 years later, you have Tony Robbins that had no father to abuse him because he wasn't sure about his father, because he had a few fathers. He had men coming in and out of his life, a total of officially 4 fathers. But his mother was mentally disturbed, prescription drugs. His mother, Tony Robbins' mother, would beat him, slam his head into the wall, put soap in his mouth, or I think salt, I forget which one. Tony Robbins, like Adolf Hitler, were homeless at times. Adolf Hitler had a kitchen soup to eat from, and Tony Robbins, when he had no food, when he was thrown out of his house by his mom, at the age of 17 or 16, I forget, basically walked in, he says the story himself, walks into stores and eats from the shelves as he's walking through the stores. You wouldn't catch him shoplifting, leaving the store, because he ate it as he was in the store. So when he walked out, he was clean. There was nothing in his hands. It was in his stomach. Adolf Hitler had a mother that would try her best, which was hard, because above him he had 3 siblings that died as young children. I forget the name of the disease that they had. So can you imagine how much capacity she had? But she tried her best to give him love every time after he was beaten, humiliated by his father, the monster. Tony Robbins had no one. Tony Robbins had no one. People talk about the 6 million Jews that were killed, the gays, the gypsies, the opponents to his party. The number is 6 million, and a few more million. But if you actually look at the complete death toll, it's between 58 and 62 million people. So one person's brain is just fried and abused and had a horrified childhood, and when we feel like garbage, many times we act like garbage. So deeply as a result of that huge abuse, it doesn't beat people. As long as I live, I will never be able to comprehend. I can't even comprehend one death, let alone 60 million deaths. And what people don't realize, most people don't realize, but very few do realize, that the Holocaust didn't end in 1945. It's 2020 today, and the Holocaust is still there. When people come to me to talk to me, and they tell me how their father or mother is a child from a Holocaust survivor, I tell them, oh my gosh. And they go, what? Well, I could tell you your life story. But they go, how do you know? And I basically tell them everything that went on in their childhood. And 90% of what I tell them actually happened. And they go, how would you know? Because there's almost a script. It's so typical. Forget about a Holocaust survivor, what they went through. I have dealt, most of my clients that I've dealt in connection to the Holocaust are grandchildren, but their parents were Holocaust survivors. And there's a certain behavior that affected these children of Holocaust survivors. So although they were in concentration camps and they were brutally hurt and emotionally abused and they knew it was wrong, but we won't get into it, they did the same thing to their children, to their own biological children, not the way it was in the Holocaust, but it was nasty. So the Holocaust is still today. So if you're asking me how many people were affected, if 60 million people died, right there must have been a few 100 million individuals that affected their families, the siblings, cousins, uncles, children, and then the next generations afterwards. Could it be 1 billion, 2 billion people that were actually affected directly from the Holocaust? I don't know. And then you have another person like we started talking about, which is Tony Robbins. And his goal for the year 2025, sorry, I got distracted there. I thought I heard something walking. For the year 2025, he plans to hit 1 billion meals. It's just mind-boggling. Besides him helping millions of people, doing therapy in stadiums with 10 to 15,000 people at a time, one of the most successful, he's not an official therapist, he's a life coach, that has affected so many people that I don't believe there's any therapist, life coach, doctor that has affected in their lifetime so many people, including Freud and Jung, whoever it might be. They would have 1, 5, 10, 100, 200 people that they would talk to, 500 people. This person, Tony Robbins, motivates, changes people's lives for the better, turns around people's lives. I didn't go to his seminars, I just read one of his books, and it totally turned around my life. It's just amazing. So besides psychologically, emotionally, and mentally changing people's lives, he is motivated because he didn't have what to eat, and his very famous story when he was 11 years old, and he did not have what to eat. It was Thanksgiving and there was no food in the house, and some stranger came to drop off some food, which is a story for itself. He decided right there and at that time that he would feed hungry people. Up to date, I think 400 million meals, I'm not sure, but his goal by as I mentioned before, 2025 is to hit 1 billion meals. The question is, why is it two individuals that went through a horrific childhood, which always, anyone that goes through a horrific childhood doesn't end up balanced, doesn't end up the normal child. They end up or extremely cruel, or they end up extremely kind, giving. They sort of fight. They fight that abuse. Why? The question is why. Furthermore, there are so many people, most people, at least 80%, that had a tough childhood, suffer economically, suffer emotionally, mentally. And when people come to them and say, why aren't you working? Why are you on weed each and every day? And they play the victim card. Why is that? Join me next week and we'll share with you the answer.